Masculinity. A very simple term that was harmless a few years ago, and nowadays can get you cancelled on Twitter. The most usual way people talk about this term currently is to try to expose the so-called toxic masculinity and the problems that it represents in our quote-unquote patriarchy. But is masculinity truly a bad thing? What it means to be a real man, isn't that supposed to be associated with virtue rather than vice? One of the best representations of what true masculinity looks like is Kenshin Himura, the wandering samurai of Rurouni Kenshin. Kenshin works as a symbol, the embodiment of what it means to be truly virtuous, to carry the weight of one's past while striving to live a life of peace and honor. His journey is mostly about resignation and redemption, but also about the pursuit of justice, a journey that reflects the complexity of masculinity in ways few other characters do. Just in case you haven't really watched the anime or read the manga, Kenshin Himura is the protagonist of Rurouni Kenshin, a historical shonen published for the first time in 1994, telling the story of the first years of the Meiji era, or the beginning of the Imperial Japan. Kenshin was a samurai fighting for the imperial forces, but he wasn't just like any other samurai. He was the most feared one. He was known as Hitokiri Batosai, the assassin, capable of wiping out entire squads and famous for killing several imperial targets. However, after the imperial forces won the war, he vanished and became a peaceful wanderer. And that's when the story starts. One of the most symbolic things about Kenshin's story happens really early when he meets Kaoru Kamiya, the owner of a dojo and, more importantly, a master in the Kamiya Kashin fighting style. Kamiya Kashin is the art of the swords that give life. The purpose of the style is to save lives rather than take them. Kaoru, in some sense, is the perfect ideal for a man like Kenshin. The Kamiya Kashin is the antithesis to the Hiten Mitsurugi, the style that Kenshin mastered as Batosai. When Kenshin saves Kaoru's dojo for the first time, one of the things that he says to the criminals who invaded her property is that he knows swords are made for killing, and the philosophy that guides Kaoru is a lie, because swords can't give life, they just take it. However, he prefers to believe Kaoru's philosophy regardless. The real question is, how can a man capable of such immense violence, who once carried the title of Batosai, the most feared assassin in Japan, transform into a protector of the weak, a man who vows to never kill again? The one thing that probably sets Kenshin apart from most other samurais is that he never wanted to kill. Even in the height of battle, when his blade was ready for anything and his enemies fell like leaves in the wind, Kenshin carried the weight of his actions like a stone on his heart. Every life he took chipped away at his soul. And that's where his story becomes different. Kenshin wasn't driven by bloodlust or cruelty, by greed or arrogance. He was driven by a sense of duty, a belief that his killings were necessary for a greater cause. But deep down, he knew there was a price. And after the war ended, he made a decision that would define him for the rest of his life. He swore to never take another life again. This decision wasn't one made out of weakness. It was the strongest choice he could have made. Kenshin understood something profound, that true power lies in restraint. Controlling your impulse and strength is what allows you to help others and improve the lives of everyone around you in the process. Imagine holding within yourself the ability to destroy, to dominate, to win any fight, and choosing instead to build something rather than tear things apart. That is the heart, the core of virtuous masculinity. It's not about the absence of strength, but the conscious choice to use that strength for good, to protect rather than destroy.
It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. It's an old expression, but it makes sense, because it doesn't mean that you can't be kind if you're strong, but it does mean you can't be strong if you're weak.
Kenshin's transformation from the ruthless Batosai to the wandering Rurouni is more than just a shift in his role. It's the rebirth of his soul. The Batosai was cold, detached, and driven by the harshness of war. But even in those dark times, he never lost his sense of right and wrong. The moment he laid down his sword as a killer and picked it up as a protector, he wasn't just abandoning his violent past, he was embracing a new philosophy. This is where Kenshin's weapon becomes a powerful symbol. The reverse blade sword, the Sakabato, isn't just a unique tool. It's a reflection of Kenshin's very being. A sword designed not to kill. And even more than that, a sword that has its blade turned towards its wielder. Every time he uses his blade, it's a reminder that he still has the capacity for violence, but he has chosen to direct that strength in a way that aligns with his vow. This is a man who understands that power isn't about how many people you can defeat. It's about the lives you can save by choosing not to. And this concept, this idea that true goodness requires the potential for danger, echoes through history. As Professor Jordan B. Peterson says, a harmless man is not a good man. A good man is a very dangerous man who has that under voluntary control. Kenshin is that dangerous man. His skill with the sword is unmatched, but his heart is what makes him great. If you are a weak man, there's nothing you can do when the ones you love the most are in danger. You're not choosing to be peaceful. You have no choice. You're just another victim, and that means that you will be oppressed. True masculinity, this balance between strength and restraint, is a theme not only in fiction, but in real life as well. Look at someone like Gandhi, who possesses an immense moral power and was able to lead a tremendous amount of people. He advocated for peace and non-violence, even in the face of opposition. We can also look at Theodore Roosevelt, who's probably my favorite American president ever, who famously said, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." These men understood that power doesn't lie in outward displays of force, but in the quiet confidence of knowing you could act violently, but choose not to. Kenshin's journey is also deeply tied to the idea of redemption. He carries the guilt of his past like a shadow, always with him, never forgotten. But instead of letting it consume him or becoming resentful, he chooses to atone by dedicating his life to protecting those who cannot protect themselves. This too is a key aspect of virtuous masculinity, taking accountability for one's actions and striving to make things right, even when the weight of past mistakes feels unbearable. In Kenshin, we see the struggle of every man who has ever felt the burden of his past, who wishes to leave behind the scars of old battles and forge a new path. In today's world, where the conversation around toxic masculinity often dominates the headlines, characters like Kenshin offer a much-needed counterpoint. Toxic masculinity isn't about being strong and protective. It's about using masculine traits in harmful ways, in the same way that feminine traits can also be used in harmful ways. Some people, men or women, choose to be toxic, but masculinity, when shaped by virtue, becomes something entirely different. It is about standing tall, not to dominate others, but to lift them up. It's about being capable of violence, but choosing peace, of having power and using it for the betterment of your community. Kenshin Himura reminds us that being a man isn't about aggression or mere dominance. It's also about compassion, about knowing when to fight and, more importantly, when not to. In his story, we find the blueprint for what it means to be a real man. The strength to hold back, the courage to seek peace, but also the capacity of using your strength to protect others if you have to. And that is what makes Kenshin truly powerful. If you've made it this far, I hope Kenshin's story has resonated with you as much as it has with me. It's a reminder that power, competence, and strength, when wielded with virtue, can change things for the better. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. And before you go, there's another video on the screen right now that I think will also help you in your journey of self-improvement. Go ahead and check it out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.